the current topic, Gilles gave it for me to speak about, like the America. My generation is struck by what is going on. Don't forget, and I see that Pierre-Henri is listening to me carefully, we've experienced the GATT and the banana war, the prosimidon, nuclear experiments, and the speech, the beautiful speech about 15 years ago around the Gulf War. We've seen so many ups and downs, but we were never taxed. So they are levying 25% customs duties hike. Whilst actually there's good friendship between our two peoples, and this is why we are a bit taken aback. So let me remind you, the significance of the U.S. market is the first export market, over 200 million. 1,300,000 crates, and can be considered that still wines are hit, but we are the main region that is concerned by this. Even if Bordeaux shows a performance of 20 or 30% higher than ours, it is only their second market. Their first market for the Bordeaux friends is China. So the market is going well. It's profitable. It's important to mention this. Look, we are here to be also merchants. It's a very white, 2/3 white and 1/3 with reds, and it's still growing with a potential that is great. Even though, let's not forget, Burgundy represents only 15% of the U.S. market. I mean, we didn't hear the figure, but we can make great progress there. Now, what is the origin of the dispute with the Americans? It had been breeding for about 15 years. We hear here and there that the U.S. president might be in a bad mood, but it goes beyond that, I believe. Look, this is a world organization which tried to trigger the retaliation on the U.S. and it's important. They did it in good faith, but in full legality. I mean, the 25% ad valorem, remember them, and sanctions hit only 1/3 of French wines. We represent about 10% of the trade exchanges of goods sold in the U.S. Out of the 3.6 billion of French wines sold in the U.S., only 1 billion are concerned. And let me tell you that we are punished for 4 months. We are part of a so-called carousel. Yes, open the gate, as our American friends say, with the possibility either that Burgundy wines are taxed at 0 or at 50, or that there are other wine-growing regions. So there are lots of uncertainties hanging over us. And what is also important is that we are getting the support of our American friends, the one institute that represents the professionals, the WWS that represents the distributors. All these people don't like at all the fact that we, the French wines, the Spanish and English and German wines, all the Airbus partners are being punished. They say it's wine for mine. So if there is no dispute, there's no matter for retaliation. I think this is very important to remind you of. So what are we seeing after this first month? Well, we were in the U.S. It creates a lot of tension, and I think beyond the drop in sales, which truly will take place or materialize early next year, because we're all trying to make efforts at the end of this year, and people have had stocks. Our distributors are focusing on their bottom line. Their profitabilities are not substantial, and they consider that we don't represent a lot. There's still French wines in their business, and they're not very enthusiastic to support us. There's also stress, because many of our main buyers are telling us, look, it doesn't matter really when we come back later on. Maybe things will quiet down. We're postponing production and so on. So in a way, this endangers us a lot. Remember that many of us, in regard, very often we have a subsidiary in the US, so certainly we fear the fact that perhaps we might suffer losses next year, or some of our managers might leave us. We are trying to train French-speaking people who know our region well. So many people tell us, what is, you'll turn things around, you know, it's only for 4 months. No, it could disorganize our distribution. And the most striking example that we talked about with our local authorities, and that we will talk about in the counties, is that these sales could develop. So it's very complicated. Wines are exported as bulk to the US, and many operators, even in Burgundy, especially from the Mâconnais, maybe it's a region that is the hardest hit. Let's not forget that the most typical wine is the Pouilly-Ficé, and many operators from the Mâcon, from the Beaujolais, from the Chablis are trying to send wine in bulk to the US. And I'm turning my attention to our politicians. I think it would be a mistake to see our bottling, our added value, our expertise leave our territories. Look, it's not a very good thing, and I think this is also part of the disorganization that was already initiated in our business. So what is our strategy? Look, in terms of Federation of Exporters, we have come up with a press conference which we put together several weeks ago. We are concerned, and we want to avoid what we experienced, you know, during the GATT conflict in 1992. We had an incident with the minister Soissons. It was a war about soya beans, and the minister, the president, he was a minister of agriculture. He said, we'll drink all of this at the buvette de l'Assemblée nationale. We want to avoid that syndrome. What we want is to make sure that public authorities get mobilized. We want real support. We are an economic value in terms of jobs and revenues. We want to put together a broad program for later on. When taxes disappear, we want also to see a reform. You know, we have difficulties in getting past the past.
À notre disposition, surtout en termes de promotion. Donc voilà, nous sommes, sans être véhéments, nous sommes demanding.
We are quite demanding. We consider that it's none of our business. Let's not forget there's a Boeing-Airbus conflict. So we are really on the lookout. We want to obtain support. It's very important, especially as regards Burgundy. These are mid-sized groups. There are hundreds or thousands of wine growers who are exporting to the US, and we fear in our main market a disengagement, less interest from our US clients. Look, we're not here to make you weep. We remain confident. We'll have to adjust. It will be business as usual. However, we need to keep an open eye because, as you know, what is lost in the US, the listings, when you're no longer on a listing, well, it takes years to get them back. So this is what I wanted to share with you about what is going on nowadays. So if you have any questions, hopefully I gave answers to many of your questions. Sorry, no mic, we couldn't hear. There's good potential in China, but let's not forget that China is a large market for reds, and Burgundy produces 2/3 of whites. There's good potential in China, granted. However, it does not mean that we have such difficulties that we should lose interest in the US. I mean, the US is absolutely important for us.
N'oubliez pas, par exemple,
Don't forget the surprising figure. 60% of Pouilly-Fuissé sales take place in the US. So our full territories and appellations who live off America. It's a market with a great potential, 300 million inhabitants. The wealth that they have there is amazing. They have appetite for Burgundy, more balanced mineral wines. The potential exists there. No one could replace the US.
Voilà. Donc on a confiance.
So we have confidence, but we have been hit, but we are now downcast. But we are really full of energy, and you will approve. We are here, we are present. Look, let's avoid the syndrome La Buvette à l'Assemblée Générale, which means just having a drink, where the MPs work in Paris.